To everybody. And look, for those of you, if you're not involved in an Interreg Europe Regional Action Plan, you may just find it interesting to have an idea of both the shape of the regional operational programme before the COVID pandemic and the shape of it afterwards, just to see what has happened in this space. Just before we get into it, a quick reminder about Interreg Europe and the difference between it and other Interreg projects. Interreg Europe is all about improving policy and practice, so it helps regional and local governments across Europe to develop and deliver better policy. And a great many Interreg Europe projects are attempting to bring about changes in the design or the implementation or the governance of ERDF co-financed operational programs. These changes then are set out in a regional action plan, and that's one of the key outputs of every project. So in the example mentioned on this slide, the Maori project, which is one that's within the Southern Regional Assembly, we're a project partner, you can see that one of the listed actions within the Regional Action Plan is to enhance governance of responsible research and innovation principles in the implementation and the monitoring of the Southern and Eastern Regional Operational Programme. So let's just take, so in Ireland there are two regional operational programmes. They're co-financed under the Regional Development, European Regional Development Fund. There's a Southern and Eastern Regional Operational Programme, approximate value of 500 million, and then there's one, the Border Midland West ROP, approximate value of about 320 million, and both programmes are 50% co-financed, so 50% ERDF, European money, and 50% national funding. The next slide, please. If we look at the Southern and Eastern Regional Operational Programme, you have 5 key priorities there. So priority 1 is around research and innovation, priority 2, ICT, broadband, priority 3 is microenterprise, priority 4 is low carbon, and priority 5, urban development, sustainable urban development. If you go to the next slide, the funding under the 5 key priorities was allocated to a selection of schemes under these priorities. And the schemes are delivered through intermediary bodies or government bodies, typically agencies, with the exception of the Designated Urban Centre Grant Scheme, or DUGS as it's called, which is under priority 5. And in that case, there is no intermediary body. The Southern Regional Assembly acts as the intermediary body in that case and issues the grant awards. At the end of 2019, all funding was fully allocated. So under each of these schemes, all of the funding under the operational programme was fully allocated. And the main focus really was expected to be declaration of expenditure to draw down on the ERDF funds. And then along came a global pandemic. So if we come on to the next slide. The EU Commission's response to the global pandemic was to create new legislation, this Coronavirus Response Investment Initiative. And really what CRE, as it's called, and CRE Plus were about, were amending the CPR, the Common Provision Regulations, to allow for far greater flexibility in terms of reprogramming or reallocation of funds, in terms of the eligibility of expenditure, perhaps that has already taken place on coronavirus response initiatives within member states, and also to offer 100% financing rather than this 50% co-financing. So that 100% financing is available for activities under new schemes, coronavirus response schemes, to the end of June of next year. So a decision was made in Ireland to avail of the flexibilities under CRE and CRE Plus. Effectively, we look to see what expenditure had yet to be declared under these under the operational programme, and 122 million worth of ERDF under the Southern and Eastern Operational Programme was reprogrammed, moved away from the existing schemes to the health support scheme, a new health support scheme. And this was approved by the Monitoring Committee in September 2020, and following that there was a Commission decision to approve the changes in October 2020. And just to note, in Ireland the reprogramming wasn't done in order to take funding away from schemes. The expectation is that if ERDF funding is withdrawn from a scheme, it will be funded entirely from exchequer funds. The main aim of the reprogramming is to draw down as much ERDF funding from Europe as possible within the shortest time frame possible. So not to be waiting for into next year and the year after and the year after to declare all of our expenditure, really to declare as much ERDF as possible and draw down on funding. So the following slides will show the impact on the programme in terms of ERDF funding. So this is the Southern and Eastern Regional Operational Programme before the pandemic and before CRE, and you can see the bulk of the funding there, 37% of it, was towards priority 1, research and innovation, and the next largest amount I think there is for low carbon economy, so better energy warmer homes and social housing retrofit. If you move to the next slide, you'll see a very different picture. You can now see that nearly half of the ERDF funding under the OP has been reallocated to this new priority coronavirus response. And specifically, that's one new scheme called the Health Support Scheme. And within that, it's really all being allocated towards the purchase of PPE. And you'll have heard various figures mentioned on the news over the course of the year in terms of the expenditure on PPE. It's just staggering how much we are having to spend on PPE, and that's replicated across Europe. So if you move to the next slide again, we look again at the list of schemes before the reprogramming, and if we ask the question, how many of these schemes will now be declaring further expenditure and outputs under the operational programme? So how many of them will come back to our monitoring committee and report on progress with new data? If you move to the next slide, you can see radical difference there. Really, you're looking at priority 1, 2 and 3 are gone. The Better Energy Warmer Home Scheme will continue under priority 4, but probably only for 1 more year. The DUGS projects under priority 5 will continue to declare expenditure and to report progress. But you'll see there's no expenditure and no outputs will be reported under priority 1, 2 or 3, and priority 4 is limited to Better Energy Warmer Homes. And of course then we'll see new expenditure and outputs reported under the Health Support Scheme. So in terms of the implications, if you'd like to move to the next slide for me, please. The implications for Interreg Europe regional action plans, really you have to ask yourself these questions. Does your regional action plan include an action to influence the Southern and Eastern Regional Operational Programme? And obviously if it doesn't, then you've no concerns. But if it does, then the next question then to ask is, does it seek to influence a scheme that is no longer ERDF co-financed and won't therefore be reporting further expenditure and outputs? Again, if the answer is no, then you're okay. But if the answer is yes, then further action is required. And this might include contacting the intermediary body and or ourselves as managing authority, just to clarify what the impact on the scheme is and on your regional action plan. You should inform the lead partner and or the joint secretariat and agree next steps if you see it as having a major impact in terms of your ability to deliver on your action plan. Then it's best to keep everyone informed, and also keep a clear record. Maybe you won't need to change your action plan if it depends really at what stage you're at, but you perhaps will need to keep a clear record of the impact of any change for reporting. So really the key is, see does the change, the reprogramming impact on your regional action plan, and if you believe it does, you know, don't wait. Make contact with your intermediate body or the managing authority. Talk to us and we'll advise as best we can, and make sure that your lead partner is aware of any changes. Okay, Sinead, thank you very much.